Welcome to the Agronomy and Farm Management Podcast. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us today. So we've seen a lot of growing interest in sustainable and regenerative agriculture across the United States. But despite this, adoption of many of our conservation practices remains pretty low. And there's a group of farmers and researchers who want to change that. And so today we're going to talk about a project called From the Ground Up. It's a farmer-led research project that is really aiming to improve the performance of conservation practices in the Midwest in the hopes of making them easier and more attractive to adopt. But unlike traditional top-down research, From the Ground Up flips the script. So there are some farmers in Ohio and Missouri who are in the driver's seat, designing and leading the on-farm research that they're conducting under their real-world working conditions. And then they're supported by researchers from Ohio State, the University of Missouri, Central State, and Lincoln University. And together they're testing how these conservation practices perform when it matters most on their own farms. So today we have two farmers who are participating in the project joining us, Fred and Josh Yoder. Could you guys take a moment and introduce yourselves to our listeners?
Sure. My name is Fred Yoder. We farm about 20 miles west of Columbus, so it's west central Ohio. We raise corn, soybeans, sometimes wheat, but lots of cover crop. I'm a fourth generation farmer. I took over from my dad back in right after school. Then later on, we took on some retail dealership feed, and then we formed Yoder Ag Services. My son Josh went off. He's fifth generation, but he went to college and got all kinds of degrees, and he came back on and started Yoder Ag Services. We basically made a transition here a few years ago, and so I'm basically helping him now. He runs the show, but we believe very much in the conservation issue, and one of the reasons that I got involved with From the Ground Up is it was a great opportunity to, like you say, switch the table and farmers actually decide what we want to research and be a part of it.
Dad mentioned, my name's Josh Yoder, farm in Central Ohio, Union and Madison County. I came back to the farm in 2010 and then took first couple of years, mainly worked in our seed business, Yoder Ag Services. In about 2017, I think it was, started to take a more active role in the farm overall, and then have been farming ever since.
Well, it's great to have you guys here. Josh and I go way back to our undergrad days, so it's been fun to reconnect with you on this project, as Elizabeth and I are both part of it in different aspects. Very large project with the multi-university, so it's been pretty cool to get it off the ground. Josh, can you talk a little bit more about what motivated you to get involved in From the Ground Up?
It's funny you mentioned that we've known each other a long time. I was thinking about it the other day. I think I met you about 22 years ago, which feels very odd to think that it's been 22 years.
Yeah, you're not supposed to say stuff like that, Josh.
Well, I mean, my participation was, with any family operation, I was a little bit voluntold that we're going to be participating. But I think the main motivating factors was really, I think the idea of being able to do a research project with some other farmers in the area to collaborate with some of our neighbors. And then also, a lot of research projects are kind of told, hey, this is what you're going to be doing. This one was a little bit different in the sense of you had an opportunity to give input and brainstorm and kind of take an active participation in the planning process.
Yeah, I think one key aspect of this project is we've got the participating farmers, and then you're sorted into groups that we call nodes based off of your geographic location and what your research interests generally are. You brought together in that group and given the opportunity, like you said, to brainstorm. And really, it was your task to decide what did you want to do, what questions did you want to try to answer, and then get at how you're going to do that together, which is, like you said, very different from a traditional research project. And so you guys have been participating in the Central Ohio node. Fred, could you share what your group's research topic is and how you came to determining what that was going to be?
Going back to when I first heard about this, Professor Douglas Jackson Smith was putting this together from Ohio State. And, when I learned this was going to be a joint project with University of Missouri, Central State, as well as Lincoln University. In my career, I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., pushing dollars to go into research that maybe, universities, land-grant universities and others wanted to support. But this is the first time that we were going to decide, farmers are actually going to decide what we're going to study and what we wanted to really focus on rather than being told this is what you need to focus on. So I was asked to round up some farmers that I thought would be really interesting. There's kind of two different kind of farmers out there. There's leaders and there's followers. You really need both. And one is not any better than the other, but you also have to realize farmers learn an enormous amount from each other. Farmers learn from farmers. And so I thought this was a tremendous opportunity for us. We got maybe 8 farmers together that we thought would be really good for this type of research project. We got them in, and we actually made a list of possible a dozen different projects that we could do, anywhere from cover crop mixes to finding different termination dates for cover crops. Is there a better or worse time? There's maybe even some inoculation research to what does that really work. The one big one was that a lot of them was really pushing for strip till versus no till, but that was something that not everyone could do. So what we really settled on was something that everyone had an interest in seeing being done, and we've always had questions about it. Was get into the idea of fungicides. On our farm, Josh has been really good at testing these for our own farm. But do they really work for everyone, or is there sometimes when they do or they don't? Do they work good in a dry year, a wet year? Is application time? Is the Cadillac fungicide that what you need to use, or can you use some generics? So when we ran that by all of the farmers, that seemed to be a consensus that should be the one that we do. So that's what we're doing ourselves, where it's about fungicides and the time we apply them, as well as there's a couple of different ways we're doing a two application versus the one application, the Cadillac versus generic, and that type of thing. I'll let Josh say that. But there was others we could have done. But the one thing about this whole node idea is we had a meeting early winter where all of the nodes got together and discussed what we were doing. It's a great chance for all of us farmers to learn from each other too. So I was really interested in some of the other projects. Well, it's so exciting to see farmers get involved and excited about research. That's not happened before. But I really think that the more we get into this, the more support we get from these farmers. We got a good group of farmers, and so far they're in it to stay. It's a 5-year program, and so I'm looking forward to the full 5 years to really get a handle on that. This is a tried and true methodology to decide whether we spend the money for it or not.
Josh, going back to you, I'm curious what other research programs you've been involved with and how this one has differed from those.
We do a lot of testing as a seed dealer. We're always testing hybrids. We work pretty extensively with the agronomy firm Advanced Agrilytics and have done some different testing on with that. But I think the main difference between this and what we've done in the past, and I kind of alluded to it at the beginning, is really the opportunity to co-create the research. A lot of times the research that we've done in the past is, the protocol and the idea has kind of been generated beforehand, and we are just, kind of called on to implement. And so I think the opportunity to co-create this research is interesting, both from the standpoint of interest in the actual subject itself. If you think about the economic environment we're in right now, the interest in fungicides, of figuring out where can we cut and where, if we were to cut certain things out, where it'd really harm us, I think is really interesting. And then also the fact that we're actively participating in it, it gave us an opportunity to figure out a way to design a protocol that was as close to our normal operation as possible. And I think that goes a long way in terms of actually executing and kind of the sustainability of reproducing the research, because we were able to do it in a way in which really, frankly, very easy to participate. And so that's helped a lot, because I've been in projects before where the protocol, there's always something that's just a little bit goofy that is just far enough outside of the normal daily operation that it's kind of a pain to execute on it. And we were able to eliminate some of that pain points through this project.
I think that's really interesting. So, Fred, to kind of deepen into that, why do you think it's so important that farmers are involved, not just in implementing the practices and the research, but also in designing the trials themselves and influencing the research? And do you think that's going to help when it comes to, originally, up front we talked about we struggle with adoption. Do you think that involvement is going to help improve adoption?
Well, one of the things about farmers is that they really do like to learn from their peers. And again, farmers learn from farmers, and they got a respect of those leaders in the community and some of the things that they're doing. You always have those leading farmers that are always trying new things. But you also have those farmers that, and we found that out in the retail seed business. A customer might ask, well, what is Joe using? And, well, he's using, that's what I want. But the other thing too is the private sector has had to pick it up. Research dollars are scarce today with lots of cuts. And so we have to figure out how do we get more with less, the same way we do with increasing yields and the efficiencies on the farm. Research has got to do the same thing. And so one of the things that really flipped this is, to really focus on a research project that farmers are needing answers to. And that's what, I think all of the 8 or 9 pods that we have in Ohio and 8 or 9 that we have in Missouri is these are very focused things that farmers are asking for answers today. The great thing about this farmer first type of approach is, like for instance, there's some of them are doing a starter fertilizer that work better than broadcasting. Do you have the stratification of nutrients when you start going to more no-till, all those ants. So it's an opportunity for us to help educate farmers, but it's also an opportunity for me as a farmer and Josh to look at what else is being done. It comes from farmers, so it's very believable. I know, and as Josh talked about the research and stuff, there's lots of times where we get conclusions from research from land-grant universities that are just not able to translate into something that we can use ourselves. These are coming from farmers, and what we want to do is put as close to real conditions on the farm as we possibly can. So the other thing that is really helping is in effect, kind of leads to more work, but it's actually caused some farmers to look at maybe a mentoring system where you sort of have a confidant where you pick up the phone or you talk to them and you can talk through a specific issue or challenge that they have as well. So and these farmers that we've got in our node, I think we have developed a trust amongst us that we can know what we say is believable and what we're looking for finite answers rather than just doing a sales pitch of something like that. But it's real stuff. But we also discuss things that have failed too. I think it's really important to understand what works and what does not work, and maybe can we tweak it to make it work the next time, or do we have to abandon that and maybe go a different direction? So I think it's truly revolutionary. It's more farmers first. What do they really need, and how do we get the answers that they really need to be successful in a very, very tight, very competitive market today with agriculture?
I enjoy watching you guys interact and build those questions and really get the chance to work together to answer them. Because for me as a researcher, it's really hard. Like I would never get a grant of this magnitude if I went and submitted a proposal saying, hey, I want to do some fungicide trials. Because that review panel is going to look at it and say, well, everybody's done fungicide trials. You don't need grant money to do that. But this really, by spinning it so that it's going to you to get the questions that you want answered, really brings light to the fact that through our traditional research process, we're not serving the needs of the people who ultimately we should be serving with our research. And so this really helps connect those dots between the research to the adoption, hopefully, at the end of the line, by giving you guys a voice to say, hey, the traditional research isn't answering exactly the question that we need answered to make it work on the farm. So that's
not only that, too, Elizabeth, is you have a dozen different projects going on with the same grant. So you're not focused on one specific outcome. You're focused on a dozen outcomes. And so you talk about efficiency, you're getting answers to a lot of different subjects on the same grant. So it's very, very efficient.
Yeah, it's going to be really great once we get out there this summer and start interacting with farmers beyond this project and see how we can continue to build that peer-to-peer learning. And moving off of that, I'm interested from both of you, Fred and Josh, talk about one or two of the collaborations specifically, maybe that you've made through this project that have really struck home or helped you either further this research project or you've taken back and built something more off of it.
I think the main collaboration that we've done, I mean, has been through obviously discussions with other farmers, both initially and within our node. I mean, when we started this, we had probably half a dozen different ideas, all of which were kind of interesting. And then as we tried to, because, if we didn't do this, one of the other things we were thinking about doing was the strip till research project. And so trying to rank order what would be the highest priority and also best to execute on for us was kind of an interesting collaboration starting out. But then also, I think in December, they had a meeting of a lot of the different nodes. And it was interesting to talk with some of those folks, what they were doing, because you found that there was some interesting projects that would not have occurred to me to investigate. There was an interesting project on cover crops in northern Ohio that it was really nice to talk with a couple of the farmers from there.
Another thing with that I think is interesting is we really strive to get the application of the fungicides on in a timely manner. And what we ended up doing was you used some drones, and there were quite a few folks that we were involved in thought that had never done that. So it kind of opened up the possibilities of using new technology like drones, and I'm sure that that's going to increase the use of drones in the future. It went very well, and we could do it on a timely basis, regardless of whether it was wet or dry. We always can learn from other farmers, and that's what's so neat about it is picking up an idea, even if it's not necessarily directly involved with the project itself. We learn from each other, and I think that's what's really kind of the magic. Dustin, the whole thing is the fact that we just constantly we learn to trust each other. We learn to take and be free with each other. And sometimes farmers can be pretty quiet and not really want to tell all their secrets. But I think our group is pretty open, and I think that we're all willing to learn from each other. And then when we get with the other pods, it's just a great learning experience that we can move things forward in a much quicker way than we have in the past with a single focus on a single issue. I think sometimes it might be learning from drinking from a fire hose, but it's a lot more information than we'd ever get in a short period of time than we did with traditional research.
Yeah, I think it's been really neat as we're approaching the midway point to see how the relationships are growing and really refining the questions. It's been great having you guys share. To close off, could you each give us just a little glimpse into what, as we move into the second half of the project and start thinking about wrapping it up, which seems crazy, we just started. What are your hopes and expectations that you hope come out of this?
My hope is that this template for using Farmers First will be a way to open up so many more new projects in the future. I just think this is a way to revolutionize agriculture research, where we can have those great leaders out there, the farmers that they not only can we do this, but we can also mentor those other farmers that would be interested but don't have the resources to do it. I just think this is a very exciting time to be involved with ag research because it's a different model, and I'm hoping that this model, at its conclusion, will lead to many other models that are any other subjects that we can really benefit from putting them in our operation and being a part of our change. We've said, Josh and I always said, farmer ought to be doing something that makes them feel a little uncomfortable in the back 40 or something. It may work, it may not, but you always learn. Even from your failures, you learn what is possible, and then new ideas come from that. So I'm thinking that it's going to help us even in many different types of subjects. Well,
yeah, I'd say personally, what I'm hoping to get out of it is obviously the outcomes of the actual research itself, but also a better understanding of all the things that are going on at OSU and some of these other different node projects. I didn't get a chance to talk about it. One of the things that kind of came out of it was last year, Amanda had a breakfast or luncheon that got together some of the people that were doing other research projects outside of what we're doing. And that was another kind of an interesting opportunity to know what are the other things that are going on in our backyard that never really thought about.
Yeah, as you guys alluded to, this project has a lot going on, and you are one node of several, and we are excited to start sharing this work out. So those who are listening, be sure to keep an eye out for upcoming field days or places where we're going to be presenting this work. If you'd like to learn more or connect with Josh and Fred or others, we do have a website, so I'll post that in the show notes. It's ftgup.org. That has a lot of information there as well. Fred and Josh, just want to thank you for your time here today, but also your time on the project and working with us to learn more and help farmers develop sustainability that works for them.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Agronomy and Farm Management Podcast. Join us again in 2 weeks for our next episode.